You've come to the most dangerous planet in the universe. You're after a creature that can't be killed. Here, you're not the predator.
On the planet Yaya Prime, a runt predator named Dek is on a training session. He uses a variety of tools to travel the land until he enters a cave, where his scanner tells him that his brother is hiding nearby. Dek attacks behind him with his sword, and Key blocks it just in time. The brothers begin to fight, and Key keeps taunting Dek as they move, reminding him to use the cave to his advantage. Swords keep on clashing as they move all over the cave, and after exchanging enough blows, Key manages to corner Dek, but doesn't kill him. When Dek refuses to yield, Key cuts the pillar they're standing on, and Dek falls into the abyss. He manages to save himself by holding onto the wall. He climbs back up and attacks Key again. Later, on their ship, Key tells Dek it's time to choose a prey so he can earn his place in the Yaya clan. Dek wants to go to Jenna, also known as the Death Planet, to hunt the unkillable monster, Kalisk. Even their father fears it, and that's why Dek wants to go after it. He's tired of his dad seeing him as a weakling. Key doesn't approve. However, Dek makes his vow. At that moment, their father, Nyar, returns, and Dek welcomes his honor with a sample of his blood. Jar wonders why Dek is alive, revealing he ordered Key to kill him because he's too weak to be part of the clan. However, Key thinks Dek deserves a chance to prove himself. An angry Jar throws a device that captures Dek and tells Key to kill him now, but instead, Key frees him and activates his laser to send him into the ship. Then, Key activates his shield to protect his brother since Jar opens fire. After closing the ship to keep Dek from escaping, Key starts fighting Jar, and in just a few moves, he manages to disarm him. Jar activates his camouflage cloak, but Key keeps punching. Soon Jar stabs his hand before chopping his arm off. Then Jar strikes his son down, and Key starts crawling away, reaching for his arm rather than his sword. Jar calls him weak and stabs him, so Key uses his last breath to activate the ship so his brother can go to Jenna. Dek watches Nyar Laque's neck as the ship's launch knocks him out. Sometime later, Dek is awakened by an alarm. The ship has been damaged by the debris in orbit and is hurling towards Jenna. Dek rushes to the seat and ejects it, so it starts falling at great speed through the Jenna sky. When a bird almost crashes into him, he activates the shield. He ends up crashing in the jungle, and he roars in frustration. Determined to find the monster, Dek takes stock of his weapons to confirm everything is working well. He's startled by a noise nearby and starts searching the area. Suddenly, a vine-like creature takes him by surprise and steals one of his weapons. Dek gets his sword ready, but a second vine grabs his arm, and he has to cut this one while the first one escapes. Unfortunately, more vines appear and reach for him until they grab his leg to drag him on the ground. Dek manages to take his bow to shoot his captor to force it to drop him, and punches the vine to keep it back. Then, Dek runs to retrieve his sword and quickly slashes the vines that keep attacking him. No matter how many he cuts down, though, more and more keep coming, and they even start attacking together. Dek quickly dodges a few blows and jumps on top of a vine to run on it, which helps him get to the top of a cliff. The vines can't reach him up there, and now Dek has a good view of the planet, which looks terrifying. Afterward, Dek washes his wound in the river and uses his scanner to find a medicinal plant that can serve as a bomb. On a leaf, he finds a worm that starts growing red spheres, and when he throws it away, it explodes. Then, he goes out to explore and search for the Kalisk. On a big field, he finds some strange red plants that keep hissing at him, so he moves carefully to avoid them. At that moment, Dek hears a voice talking in a strange language, and looks up to see Thea trapped in a huge nest. Realizing he can't understand her, Thea changes to the Universal Translator, which confirms she's an android known as a synthetic. Suddenly, a Jenna vulture appears nearby and grabs a rock to throw at the strange plants. This makes the pods explode with red smoke and shoot their needles, which Dek quickly dodges. Thea explains that the needles can paralyze paralyze him so that the vulture can eat him. When Thea offers her help, Dex says that the Yaoya hunt alone, and Thea guesses he's here for the Kalisk. The vulture throws more rocks and multiple plants are activated, so Dex is hit by the needles. As he starts feeling dizzy, Thea asks for a weapon, so he tosses one of his blades at her before collapsing. The vulture FLIs down and is about to eat him when Thea tackles the beast and brutally kills it with the blade. Dex sees her wave before passing out. Minutes later, Dex wakes up because Thea has given him an antidote made from the same flower. Dex stands up and helps Thea do the same, only to notice that she's missing half her body. She explains she's a synthetic sent by the Wei and Yutani Corporation because humans can't live on this planet, but Dex doesn't care and drops her. Thea then points out that many Yaoya have come for the Kalisk, and none of them survived, but she did. If he takes her with him, she'll guide him to the Call's den. That way, she gets her legs and he gets his trophy. Dex realizes that it was the Kalisk who destroyed her, but he's still not interested. However, when Thea calls herself a useful tool, Dex doesn't see it as breaking the code anymore and agrees to bring her along. While they travel, Thea never shuts up and keeps asking questions. At the river, some peculiar worms begin shooting acid at them. So, Dex carries Thea on his back to run faster. Unfortunately, he finds the way blocked, and Thea uses the chance to teach him a lesson. She throws a sticky fruit on the ground, and the creatures rush to eat it. Now, they aren't shooting anymore. Once they leave the river, Dex cuts down a bunch of vines and ties Thea to his back to move more easily. In the evening, they stop to camp for the night, and Dex uses his device for light. Thea shares that her crew arrived on Jenna 2 years ago, and she was trapped in the vulture's nest for almost 2 weeks. She had hoped that another synthetic named Tessa would come for her, and tells Dex that they have a higher sensitivity than other models. Dex sees sensitivity as a weakness, but Thea thinks it's an advantage to understand other creatures. Thea used to be stuck in the lab, but one day, Tessa brought her out to explore. Unfortunately, that was also the day that the Kalisk attacked them. Meanwhile, at the crew's new base, it's revealed that Tessa looks just like Thea. She received severe damage during the Kalisk attack, so now she's in a pod being repaired. Tessa keeps repeating Thea's name and remembering the incident, so the computer reminds her that her priority is to catch the Kalisk. The computer also detects the presence of a Yaoya and classifies him as a threat. When Tessa finally wakes up, she's told that Thea was captured by the Yaoya. In the morning, Dex goes out to hunt for food. He comes across a bone bison, which is usually Kalisk food. Dex tries to move ahead, but has to move back when he discovers that this field is covered in razor grass. When Dex about to throw his blade, a small creature jumps from a tree and lands next to the duo. Thea can't identify it, and Dex roars at it, but the little guy just roars back. Then the creature starts chasing after the bison without issues because its hard skin isn't hurt by the razor grass. Furious about having competition, Dex starts jumping from tree to tree to follow the bison too. The weight breaks a branch and the duo falls. So, Dex pierces the tree with his blade and stops the fall right before they touch the dangerous grass. When the bison runs near them, Dex jumps on it and stabs it. However, the bison throws them off by using another tree. The small creature rolls ahead of them, and a frustrated Dex tackles it to start a fight, which means Thea often gets smooshed. The little guy has surprising strength, but after some struggle, Dex manages to grab it by its neck. At that moment, the bison comes running toward them. So, Dex throws his sword and holds the bison's mouth open as the blade proceeds to cut it in half. Dex roars to celebrate a successful hunt, only for a tentacle to suddenly grab his leg and lift him. The duo has been captured by a Luna bug, whose tight tentacle tongue is stopping Dex from activating his devices. When they're about to be eaten, the little creature jumps into the Luna bug's mouth and blocks its teeth with its hard skin, breaking them. The Luna bug is in so much pain that it spits them out and leaves by walking on the razor grass. Desperate for revenge, Dex cuts down a tree to use it as a bridge. The little creature is rolling down the field already, and the Luna bug captures it with its tongue. But at that moment, Dex lands on its head. He stabs the monster with his sword and makes a large cut that finally kills it. Meanwhile, Tessa and her crew of synthetics are searching for Thea. They find find Deck's pod before they're attacked by the vines. The crew quickly opens fire to slow them down. Then, they activate their flamethrowers to burn all the vines down. In the evening, Deck and Thea make camp again. The little creature is still following them and copying every move of Deck's because it's impressed by how he hunted the bison. Thea names it Bud, while Deck shares the roasted meat. Thea asks Deck about his family, so he tells him what happened with his brother and father, but he refuses to accept he's grieving when Thea uses that word. He points out that Tessa counts as her sister, and Thea likes the concept. In the middle of the night, Tessa and her crew find Deck's ship, which crashed after he jumped out. There are many Yoja weapons that Tessa finds interesting, including a grenade that freezes her hand. The next morning, Deck grabs Thea and leaves, without Bud, insisting that he hunts alone. And Thea doesn't count because she's a tool. Thea tells him about wolves and how they hunt in packs. But the alpha isn't the one who hunts the most, it's the one who protects the pack. Deck misses the point and says he'll be the alpha who kills the most. After finding a call fang near the river, the duo continues traveling in that direction and reaches Thea's base, which has been completely destroyed by the beast. Among dozens of synthetic bodies, Thea finds her legs. Thankfully, the repair machine still works, and she can use it to reconnect both halves of her body, although the process will take a while. She thanks Deck for his help, but also apologizes and tells him to leave because she's activated the beacon to call her crew. Thea explains her team is also after the call, so she can't let him kill it. Deck refuses to leave, saying he'd rather go down with honor than run like a coward. In the middle of the wreckage, there's some spilled oil, so Deck sets it on fire to create a smoke cloud. The Kalisk soon appears and throws Deck down, damaging his sword. Deck uses a piece of metal as a shield and slides under the Kalisk to slice its belly. Then he throws his small blade at its head and cuts its tail. However, the tail quickly regrows and the wounds close because the Kalisk has regenerative powers, which explains why it's considered unkillable. The monster captures Deck and throws him against the repair machine, which causes Thea's legs to fall off the table. When it grabs him again, Deck cuts its tongue to free himself. The fight continues and Deck has to dodge several attacks while Thea tries to retrieve her legs. At that moment, she sees a gun on the ground and opens fire at the call to distract it. Deck uses the chance to throw a chain at the call's mouth and activates a machine that starts rolling up the chain, which drags the beast back. Next, Deck takes Thea's gun and starts shooting. When the monster attacks him with its tail, Deck dodges it and closes a storage unit door to trap it. Now, he can run up the call's body and make a big jump above its head to successfully decapitate it. Sadly, this is still not enough to kill it, and the head quickly reattaches itself to the body. The Kalisk holds Deck down with its huge paw and sniffs him. The smell it finds prevents it from attacking. The moment is interrupted when Tessa throws a grenade to freeze both Deck and the Kalisk so she can capture them. Sometime later, Deck wakes up strapped to a table in the crew's vehicle. Thea is in suspension mode because she's connected to the repair machine, and Tessa has read all her logs. She doesn't understand why Deck's alive, since the Yaya usually kill weak children, and says that belonging to her company should be an honor for him. Then Tessa wakes up Thea and congratulates her for getting to specimens. She gives Deck a painful injection to experiment on him, so Thea tries to smoothly save him by pointing out he's a runt and therefore not ideal for science. She thinks they should keep his weapons and let Deck go. Tessa still wants a sample, so she connects two cables to his head that cause him lots of pain. A desperate Thea turns off the machine and tells Tessa they should be more than robots that only follow orders. In fact, she wants them to be sisters. However, Tessa reveals she didn't come back to rescue Thea. She came for the Kalisk. She agrees with Yaoya's tradition of getting rid of the weak and calls Thea broken. At that moment, Tessa gets a call from Earth. So, she leaves to take it after ordering a guard to box Thea up. Since the guy can't speak yet, Deck asks Thea to make him open one of his devices. Thea tells the guard that Deck's device is a map, and when he opens it, his head explodes. Then, Thea frees Deck and an alarm is triggered, so more guards come to open fire at him. Thea opens the back door, and Deck jumps into a waterfall to escape. Sometime later, Deck finds his crashed ship and takes care of his wounds. However, there are no weapons left. He considers leaving the planet, but he looks at his brother's helmet and remembers that the best wolf wolf is the one who protects the pack. Dek returns to the jungle and starts gathering natural dangers to use as weapons, like blades of razor grass and the spikes from the red flowers. He also gets the acid worm by using the fruit. While working, he comes across Bud and smells its spit. He finally realizes that Bud is the Call's child and he was spared for smelling like it, so Dek covers Bud with his own spit instead. Lastly, he frees Thea's legs so he can follow them to their owner. T, the new base. Dek appears wearing the bison bones as armor and throws acid at a guard to bring him down. The legs follow a signal from Thea, who is in suspension inside a box. When two guards try to attack the legs, Dek quickly defeats them with a whip made with vines and razor grass. Bud also helps by destroying a guard in seconds. The duo keep sneaking around the base, bringing down any guard in the way so the legs can keep moving without interruptions. Meanwhile, Tessa is talking to the company and reports they'll go back soon with the Kalisk. When asked about Dek, she tells them that he's dead. With his collection of natural weapons, Dek keeps destroying synthetic guards, sometimes fighting a few of them at the same time. Inside a lab, a guard manages to corner him, so Dek breaks a glass cage and lets a vine sample kill him instead. When the legs find the box, they jump on a guard's neck and quickly kill him before opening the container. Thea wakes and celebrates, but she hears guards coming, so she pretends to be asleep again. The legs kick a guard to make him fall, and Thea jumps out to fight him while the legs confront the second guy. Both body halves help each other in battle, and when a guard is about to hit the legs, they jump away, and the blow destroys the other synthetic who is being held by Thea. Then she holds up a small machine piece, and the legs push the final guard's head on it to kill him too. Soon, Dek finds the box too, but it's empty. A guard surprises him from behind, only for Thea to kill him with a shot. Her halves are finally back together, and she's surprised to see Dek, who admits he came back for her like a proud wolf. Thea wants to leave, but Dek announces they must free the Callus so Bud can be with its mother. Suddenly, an alarm goes off, and Tessa tells her men to speed up the launch of the ship with the Callus. While she investigates, a team of soldiers finds Dek, who activates the combustible worms to create a nice explosion that destroys all the synthetics in one go. Then, Tessa appears inside a battling suit and shoots Dek with the laser she stole from his ship, which kills his acid worm. She uses the suit to bring down structures and pulls out a huge saw, but Dek dodges it all. In the main ship, Thea tries to access the Callus, but the cage is locked. When a guard comes by, she fails to impersonate Tessa, so she smashes the guy's head on the cage instead. Then she uses his eyes to open the lock. When an attack throws Dek into the lab, the suit hand comes down and is captured by the moving vine. Dek tries to climb it, but Tessa immediately throws him off, so he hides behind a container. Tessa lifts it, but doesn't see him. It turns out, he's climbed on the container to be above her. Now, Dek can jump on Tessa to beat her up, but she quickly closes the cockpit. Suddenly, the Callus appears and jumps on the suit, so Tessa activates the saw to stab it and lift it. While she's distracted, Dek climbs to the back of the suit and starts ripping cables off to slow it down. Tessa throws a grenade at the Kalisk, but Dek hits it with a metal rod and makes it land on the suit's arm, so the ice makes it drop the Kalisk. The beast removes the saw from its body and attacks the suit, splitting it in two. When the upper half lands, the Kalisk devours Tessa and roars in victory. The others reunite with Dek, and they watch the Kalisk check on its kid. They share a sweet moment, and Dek is inspired to show his respect for the Kalisk too by bumping foreheads. Suddenly, the Kalisk explodes from an ice grenade activated by Tessa, who has been alive inside the beast's stomach. She emerges from the rubble and tries to attack Thea, only for Dek to stab her from behind, finally killing her. He takes back his device, and Bud rips off her head. Sometime later, Dek returns to Ya and presents Tessa's head to his father. Nar still thinks he's a disgrace and sends out 2 guards to kill him, but Dek moves fast and easily kills them first. Then Dek fights Jar, who hides with his camouflage cloak. Dek activates the ship's engine to create a sandstorm that allows him to see his father's location and cuts his arm off to stop him. Then he captures him with a cage device. When Deck symbolically stabs his dad's helmet, Jar takes it off and says that Deck can join the clan if he shields. However, Deck says he already has a clan before a grown-up bud eats Jar's head. Thea congratulates him while Deck takes his father's cloak. At that moment, another ship appears, and Deck says it's his mother. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.